Kulvinder Singh, and we'll start the opening statements with Jennifer Dupré, and you have up to 3 minutes.
Thank you.
And there's a button. I didn't show you the white button.
Got it. Thank you. First of all, I want to thank the Chamber of Commerce, the Farm Bureau, and the Appeal Democrat for hosting this forum and inviting all of us here. I also want to apologize if I'm a little froggy. I'm still having allergies, so I don't normally sound quite so froggy. My name is Jennifer Dupré. I am running for DA. It's easy to remember. It rhymes, Dupré for DA, so hopefully you'll remember that on June 3rd. I have been an attorney for 16 years. I went to the University of California at Davis undergrad, got a degree in fermentation science, and I went to the University of San Francisco School of Law where I got my JD in 1997. I have been a prosecutor for over 9 years. I was a prosecutor in the Yuba County District Attorney's Office for 6 years, and I'm in my 4th year in the Butte County District Attorney's Office. My current assignment is special victims. That's just what it sounds like and just what it is on the TV show. That's the child abuse, child molestation, adult sexual assault, domestic violence, and elder abuse, with a little bit of the sexually violent predators thrown in for good measure. In my caseload, we do deal with the most vulnerable victims and the most heinous of crimes. That has given me the experience to deal with the entire realm of victims and witnesses in our community. As part of my job, I have opted to volunteer and train volunteers with the Rape Crisis Center. I'm on the child abuse response team and the sexual assault response team. I train the junior or entry-level deputy district attorneys in my office. I am an instructor at the California District Attorneys Association, so I actually train district attorneys on a statewide level. And I also train local law enforcement on domestic violence and search warrants. Some of my main focuses are going to be to improve communication, both with law enforcement and with the public. We need to have excellent relations with law enforcement so that both of us can do our jobs effectively. And the public is entitled to know what's going on with cases that have made the newspaper, with cases that they're victims of or witnesses to. And one of the ways to increase that communication is another priority of mine, and that's to rebuild victim witness. Prosecutors cannot do their job effectively without a strong victim witness program. In fact, without a strong victim witness program, what happens is we end up re-victimizing victims, and that's not acceptable in my job. I also want to focus on the gang problem that is ever increasing here in Sutter County. I want to bring the prosecution that we're doing in Butte County to Sutter County and make our community safer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And our next candidate is Jana McClung.
Thank you. I am Jana McClung, and I'm a candidate for District Attorney of Sutter County. I want to take a moment and introduce my husband, who is present in the audience, Tom. Tom and I moved to this area well over 32 years ago when he was stationed at Beale Air Force Base. We are a military family, my husband having served over 22 years in the Air Force. We have been in this area for the full 32 years, and we've raised our children here. I've been an attorney for 17 years. I've been a prosecutor for 15, and a little over 5 years ago I was promoted to the position of Assistant District Attorney. And for the last 6 months I've been the Acting District Attorney. During my career, as a prosecutor, I have prosecuted a myriad of cases, everything from low-level misdemeanors up through and including sexual assault cases, gang cases, and murder cases. Currently, I do try cases in the office, I do some of the major felonies, and I do the gang cases. I have been, as your Assistant District Attorney, both involved in the administration within the office, overseeing the attorneys, and continue to work in the courtroom and try cases. As the Acting District Attorney for the last 6 months, I've continued to be in the courtroom, actively hands-on with cases. And as your district attorney, I will continue that because it is extremely important that the district attorney not sit behind a desk all the time, but to be involved in the jury system and the legal system. My decision to run for district attorney was made well over 5 years ago. And at that point in time, when I made that decision, I stepped back to figure out what would I need to do to be a very effective district attorney. And one of the things I realized is that a law degree alone, or the ability to try a case, was not going to be sufficient in dealing with the county budget and the finances, especially in the economic situation we're in. So in 2009, I went back to school to obtain my master's degree. In 2012, I received my master's in business administration with an emphasis in public administration. I have spent the last 15 years as a prosecutor. I'm dedicated to public safety and protection. There's a couple of areas that I think need more attention and will need more attention for the next few years, and that's in the area of theft and gangs. As a gang prosecutor, I know about our gang problem. I am one of the only candidates who is currently prosecuting gang cases and has prosecuted gang cases. Our theft cases are on the rise due to the economic downturn as well as the AB 109 realignment, and we need to turn a sharp focus to dealing with those theft cases. My dedication to this community doesn't stop at the courthouse. I'm also a Rotarian. I serve on the board of the Salvation Army as well as the Family Intervention Team. Sutter County needs a DA that's dedicated to this county, that is dedicated to prosecuting criminals, and has the knowledge and the ability to run the office, and that is me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Amanda Hopper.
I want to echo the thank you to the Chamber, the Appeal, and the Farm Bureau for hosting this event tonight. My name is Amanda Hopper, and I'm running for the Sutter County District Attorney because I believe that Sutter County needs and deserves a District Attorney's office that will ensure public safety by prosecuting violent criminals to the fullest extent of the law, that will not tolerate gang crimes, and that will work to prevent and prosecute property and agricultural crimes. We need an elected district attorney that will lead the office with honesty, integrity, and success. Now, a little bit about myself. I am a Sutter County lifelong resident. I attended Terrebonne Elementary School and then Yuba City High School. And after college, I came back to Sutter County, worked for a social worker, or as a social worker for a few years with CPS before I decided to go to law school. I attended BYU Law School, which is a nationally ranked law school, and then returned here and joined the Sutter County District Attorney's office. I was there for over 7 years, and during my time there, I had the opportunity to handle all types and all degrees of seriousness of cases, from minor cases on up through some of the most serious cases, including gang crimes. And one of my assignments for over 3 years was I prosecuted all of the child molest, sexual assault, and special victims crimes. I also had the opportunity early in my career in the DA's office to be assigned to supervise and train other attorneys, which is something that I enjoyed and did quite well at. I'm very grateful for that opportunity. I also want to take a few minutes and talk about my family. I have my husband Brian here, who we met when he was stationed at Beale Air Force Base, and he's now a full-time deputy with the Yuba County Sheriff's Department. My mother Susan is also here, and one of my daughters Elizabeth. Brian and I live in Sutter County. We raise our children here, and I have been raised to give back and to serve my community. And that's the example that I'm making and leaving for my children. That is why I'm running for district attorney, because I believe that Sutter County needs change and needs a strong leader. One of the things that I enjoyed most in the DA's office was I brought to Sutter County a program where we held court in the high schools. We went to the schools and we had a sentencing program there. We brought in a criminal defendant, and the kids got to see court, and they got to see somebody locked up and taken away to jail. And it was the first and best opportunity that I had to feel like I was preventing crime, like I was trying to stop crime before it actually happened. And I will continue to work with our schools, with probation, and with law enforcement. In fact, I'm very honored to have been endorsed by the Sutter Deputy Sheriff's Association. They know me, they know the way I practice law, and they know that I will fight for justice, that I will fight to protect our community, our people, our property, our agriculture, our economy, and our future. We need a leader who will analyze the Sutter County District Attorney's Office's strengths and weaknesses, and we structure the office to provide an office that we can be proud of, and I am that leader.
And Kulvinder Singh.
Hi everybody, packed room. Thank you for
Do you have a white button on your microphone there? There you go.
Hi everybody, this is the packed room. Thank you for coming. I'm the last candidate on this panel. I want to say that there's been several forums where we've all participated. from the North Valley Hispanic Chamber to the Sutter Youth Tea Party and Taxpayers Association. So this audience may be more of a general public audience. Let me tell you about that immigrant drive that brings people to this area. That not only brings money, but it brings people with ideas, people with nothing, who then make something of it. I grew up in New York City. My parents, my family, my dad's an engineer. I heard about Didar Singh bands coming with $8 doing the work of 4 men, and he was trotted out by the Chamber of Commerce. I had no idea where Yuba City was. I decided after Justice Kennedy was appointed to the court to apply to law school to McGeorge. I've been in this area for 25 years now. In the process of getting my Juris Doctorate, I got a master's in business administration. I worked part-time. When I finished law school, I came on up to work at the senior legal aid office here. For $7 an hour, I learned all about the problems of a country, community as opposed to a city community. And I didn't think last year that I would be having this opportunity to run for this position. A lot of things have happened. I could tell you now, I don't know how much time I have, I think Wendy will let me know. I could tell you about how Victor Witness has not been rebuilt. Nothing has changed since last November. I could tell you about how mandated reporters, people who are supposed to report child abuse, suspected child abuse, whether it's a woman who works for a man who does dispatch in an auto company in Marysville, is abusing a child, or it's a young mother who says that her mother-in-law was abusing her and she went to her doctor and nobody reported it. There are a lot of things that aren't prosecuted because nobody knows the people that live around them. There are no Punjabi-speaking people in the DA's office investigating or prosecuting. In fact, all they have is an assistant investigator who speaks Spanish. I called Victor Witness today. They wouldn't give me any more information about what they do. They have the same victim advocate they have had since Mr. Adams. There's so much more we can get into when the questions come, and that's why I'm running this position. I think we need an outsider, someone that has practiced in other counties, that has more criminal experience, more experience as a lawyer than everybody on this panel. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to mention we have the fabulous Jackie Lee as our timekeeper for this segment. She's the Chamber Membership Director for the Chamber of Commerce. I like to see her blush. That's why I always put these superlatives ahead of her name. But she is wonderful. I've known Jackie for how long? Almost 30 years?
Few years.
So if you could, please adhere to the time because we want to get enough questions with a large panel. Questions will be limited if we don't keep to the time limits. This is going to be I'm Bob Harlan, by the way, and I'm moderating with Angel Diaz. And this is interesting because this is the first contested DA race in Sutter County since 1982. It's 32 years. So this is kind of historic in some ways. So let's go ahead and have our first question.
Okay, and we're not only getting questions from the audience, and I want to remind audience members that if they want to turn in a card, to please do so, but make sure that the questions are directed to all of the candidates here, not just one. But we've also gotten quite a few questions that we've gotten actually from some of your peers in attorneys and in law enforcement, past and present. And they're very interested in hearing about what your plans are. So let's start with we already have a mention of AB 109 and some of the current challenges, the short-term challenges that California is having to come to terms with in terms of the public safety realignment. What do you believe will be the long-term impact of the changes brought about by this law? And if elected as district attorney, how do you envision your role in the continued implementation of this legislation? Jana, we're going to start with you.
Well, AB 109, in my opinion, has caused some problems with putting more criminals back out on the streets. We do need to address how AB 109 is dealt with in this county. In terms of long-term changes, I can only hope that eventually we will end up with not quite as many individuals sitting in the county jail for long periods of time, and we end up with some rehabilitation. I don't know that that is going to be the reality of AB 109. I think we're eventually going to see a turn back towards some of the individuals going back to prison and them changing some of the laws as to who stays on the outside in the local jails and who goes back into prison. In terms of working on AB 109, in my opinion, one of the important things to do is work with the probation department to determine where we can best use evidence-based practices and rehabilitative efforts on the inmate population in the jail, so we don't end up with individuals who are high-risk offenders back out on the streets. Thank you.
Thank you. Amanda?
Probably the biggest impacts that were not anticipated on our county since the implementation of AB 109 are the increased costs to the jail and mental health for mental health and medical expenses because of the increase in the types of inmates that we've had. That was not anticipated. The other, I think, impacts probably were, the thing about AB 109 is it is the law, and right now and unless and until it gets changed, we need to work with the law. One of the things that I've seen other counties do quite successfully is they get together with probation, with the sheriff's department, and with the DA's office, and that's something that I think needs to happen, and it needs to happen regularly, so that not only can we analyze the best way to work within AB 109, but to change and adapt as we go. There are some counties out there that are successfully reducing crime and recidivism by utilizing the funding going to probation for programs and policies that our probation department has implemented, and they're not getting used as much as they would like. So there you go.
Kulvinder?
We have a diverse audience. Let me just tell you in 10 seconds, this is a law that we have to follow. There are people in state prison that are not going to be housed here up to 3 years sometimes if that's what their sentence is. The problem that seems to be occurring is we don't have their supervision locally in Chico and in Auburn. That's where those supervisors are. That's something we'll have to work out, whether those supervisors come here and go visit the people that they're supposed to be monitoring or not. We'll have to figure that out, because in these rural counties up here in the north, you know, there are distances involved. It's a lot better than not doing what's required of the law, of having all those people in prisons, building more prisons. These are offenders that were from our local community. There are ways to rehabilitate them. There are ways, if they're closer to their families, that they can come back into our society.
Thank you. And Jennifer?
Thank you. The long-term effects of AB 109 are yet to be seen. Part of the reason for that is because that law is still changing. In fact, there's legislation pending right now that will again change AB 109. When AB 109 first became someone's idea, the sheriffs statewide started discussing what that would mean to them. And in fact, they did anticipate the increased costs to the jail. They began to budget for them and plan for them. Corey Honey in Butte County is actually recognized statewide as one of the top implementers of AB 109. And I have worked closely with him as AB 109 unfolded in today. And what that has taught me is that the key to successfully implementing AB 109 is to work closely, not just with probation, but intimately with the sheriff's department, because they are the ones who determine who get released when. And we all need to be on the same page for that so that we can keep our community as safe as possible under this realignment.
And just remind everyone, whoever we begin the question with, if they choose to, can have up to 1 minute for rebuttal. Janet, did you want to add anything?
No, thank you.
Okay, our next question will be for Amanda Hopper. A sexual harassment lawsuit was recently filed against individuals in the Sutter County District Attorney's office. In addition, there have been allegations of both victim witness funds and anti-drug abuse funds being misallocated. What steps would you take to restore the outward reputation of the DA's office? And this is a question from the audience.
One of the things that happened when I was in the DA's office, I became aware not of those specific instances that were referred to, but of some questionable ways of handling money. And when I reported it, approached in a way saying this is the normal way. It wasn't ethical, and I reported it and made sure that it was dealt the right way. My integrity has never been in question and never will be put into question. So the thing about trust, the thing about credibility, the thing about reputation is it's not something that you have overnight. Once lost, it takes time and it has to be earned back. We will earn it back because, like I said, we're going to have successful prosecution and we're going to do it with honesty, transparency, and absolute integrity. So we're going to earn back that by being the type of office that has a good reputation.
Kulvinder?
Can I have their question again?
A sexual harassment lawsuit was recently filed against individuals in the Sutter County District Attorney's office. In addition, there have been allegations of both victim witness funds and anti-drug abuse funds being misallocated. What steps would you take to restore the outward reputation of the DA's office?
Okay, I'm going to give it 3 different responses. The case was settled. There's a settlement agreement. The harassment is concluded. I've requested under the Freedom of Information Act the county executive release that settlement agreement. When I get it, I'll share it with the newspaper. The misallocation of money, that is basically regarding Bill Thompson and who he billed, whether he billed the state, whether he billed victim witness. I've requested those type cards. That's also something that I understand the attorney for Elizabeth Pollard is still pursuing. That's not actively settled. And the third piece of it is the outward appearance of things. You know what? It's really easy to cover up stuff. I don't think people want it out. I don't think people want to talk about how much the Yuba County District Attorney's Office spent prosecuting those lawyers. I don't think people want to talk about how much money has not been spent properly in victim witness to prove a case where someone kills her mother-in-law. Thank you.
Okay, and the next candidate is Jennifer Dupré.
Thank you. The main way to rebuild the confidence in the Sutter County District Attorney's Office, which is desperately needed, is communication and transparency. The way I intend to accomplish that is through a completely open door policy. Anyone can stop by anytime they want, they can call me anytime they want, and I intend to have quarterly town hall meetings throughout the county, because I know people oftentimes won't call or won't stop in. This way we can continue the flow of information. People can ask the questions, they can share their ideas, and I can hear what people's concerns are. Additionally, an audit was conducted on the misuse of funds. I would go to the state agency that conducted that audit. If they're not willing to share that information, a complete audit would be done. I know that some of the funds have been repaid to the state. That was approved in a Board of Supervisors meeting several months ago. But we need to see if more money is owing, because we need to make sure that we're clear with the state so we can continue to get the grants that we need. Thank you.
Jana McClung.
Thank you. In terms of the victim witness issue, the audit that has been addressed is for the 2011-2012 fiscal year. The 2012-2013 Cal OES granted Sutter County again with grant money. We were given grant money again in 2013-2014 year. We are in the process of applying for the 2014-2015 year, and we see no issues with being granted the grant for that period of time. In terms of the overall outlook on the office, I have and will continue to perform my job with conviction, candor, and transparency. And that will carry the office through to the people, as well as all of the employees in the office who do the same thing every day when they choose to come into work and do the best job they can for the people of Sutter County.
Amanda, anything you would like to answer, to add to that?
Just that as the only candidate who has experience both prosecuting and defending criminal cases, I have a unique viewpoint into how important it is to maintain that reputation, and I think that this is something that can and will be done under the right leadership.
Thank you. As a follow-up to this question, you know, the Sutter County Victim Witness Program operates under the DA's office with 1.5 employees currently. Other counties have the victim witness program separate from the DA. In fact, Yuba County victim witness program operates under the probation department. They have 10 employees. Do you feel the DA's office and the victim witness office have properly cared for victims? If not, what changes would you make to the DA and the victim witness offices to better serve victims of crime? Kulvinder, we'll start with you.
Thank you. The Sutter County office has 4 staff, 1 volunteer. The deputy DA that assists, her name is Anu Chopra. She does not speak Punjabi. I don't know how much Hindi she knows. George Logan, who's the supervisor, told me that there is some funding under state grants, but he told me it's the same victim advocate, Stephanie Cooper, who's been there for a number of years now. And that was part of the reason Elizabeth Pollard got fired, and she won something. We will find out how much in her settlement. As to what that office does, they do not render assistance with restraining orders. In various counties that I have practiced in, you have workshops, you have ways for people who don't speak English, who aren't legally trained, who maybe haven't even finished high school, to be able to get assistance with restraining orders. George Logan told me, we give assistance dog classes. He wouldn't give me any more ammunition for the DA debate tonight, so that's when he concluded the phone call. As to what else victim witness can do, you know, we're going to have to hire some people from outside the area that have run offices that actually know how to run it. Thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer?
I do not believe that victim witness and the DA's office is currently serving victims in the manner that they should. I personally have received phone calls from at least 2 victims of domestic violence asking for help after they reached out repeatedly to victim witness in Sutter County, repeatedly to the district attorney's office, got nowhere, were considering returning to their batterer because they couldn't get any help and they needed to pay the rent. Someone put them in touch with me. Victim Witness is a statewide program. They can get assistance from any county, and I was able to get them the assistance they needed. That now will be, both of those will be prosecutable cases because the victims are still on board and have not gone back with their batterers. So what changes need to be made? We need to have an openness to helping victims, to understanding that they can be provided with relocation fees, costs of security cameras, assistance with counseling, assistance with attending court, understanding the court process, and not re-victimizing them. And that's going to take more people and trained people.
Jana?
Thank you. Sutter County Victim Witness Office has a coordinator, 2 advocate positions, and 2 volunteers currently in the office. In terms of the services that are provided, the coordinator as well as the advocates work with the victims in assisting in explaining the court system to them, putting them in touch with counselors, filling out restraining orders, sitting with them through the court process, filling out all the documentation necessary to make claims with the state for any expenses that can be reimbursed. They do a myriad of they perform a myriad of services for the victim. They are there every day for the victim. The victim needs services. During a recent trial, one of our advocates sat with the family through the entire trial, explaining the process. They are always available to talk with the victims, explain the process, and every Friday at preliminary hearings, they are in the courtroom, sitting with those victims and assisting them, and at times sitting up at the witness stand with them and giving them support. So the victim witness in Sutter County is alive and well. Thank you.
Ma'am?
No, I do not believe our victim witness office adequately serves victims. They do go to court with them. They do sit by them, and they do help them with forms. And they are very short-staffed, and they do not have all those people in the office every day, or even most days. Now, I have said for a very long time, and I'm going to continue to say it despite the fact that I don't want a lot of friends saying this, the Victim Witness Department does not belong under the umbrella of the District Attorney's Office. Yuba County has it under probation, other counties have it under probation. It works successfully there. You have a Victim Witness Office in another county where our Sutter County victims go to them because they're served better there, because they're more organized, and because they have more availability and more resources. There's a conflict of interest at times between the DA's office and the Victim Witness Office because the DA's office job is prosecution and the Victim Witness Office is to protect those victims. And while they should be on the same team, they don't always align up. and there should not be an exchange of information because it does not protect victims.
Can I get a chance now?
Yes.
I want to go back to the public safety issue. I have a friend in the audience, she called me after she learned I was running. If the police are going to come and they're going to shoot first and ask questions later, you kind of don't want to call 911. And if you're not going to get help from victim witness because they don't speak your language, they won't come out to you, maybe you don't have a driver's license, maybe you don't have a car, and you can't go to another county's victim witness, you are stuck. So sometimes this attitude that we have that let's let things keep going the way they've been going, maybe somebody will change it. Nobody's going to change it unless you do from the top a change. That's why I'm running. That's why I think we need to have, well, there's the openness and the relocation of the council. We need to have all those things. There's mental health. There's public health. There are other issues that we can bring together in a victim witness program that's independent of the DA.
All right, thank you.
Our next question, and we'll start with Jennifer Dupré. How has the DA's office performed in prosecuting agriculture-related crimes such as felony theft of farm equipment and wiring? As agriculture is the #1 industry locally, is there more the DA's office can do or should do to be tougher on these crimes?
Thank you. Yes, there is more that the district attorney's office can do and should do. As you said, agriculture is the #1 industry in Sutter County, and theft of agricultural implements, crops, copper wiring, things like that affect all of us, not just the farmers, because it causes prices to go up. It causes crops to be ruined if the copper wiring from a pump is stolen and the crops don't get water in time. So this is crucial, and we need to have consistent, aggressive prosecution of all agricultural crimes, not just felonies, because you can make a felony out of a chronic misdemeanor if we can prosecute them enough times. One way that we can assist the agricultural community is with the owner-applied number program. That's used in a number of counties, and it would be a partnership between the farmers, the Farm Bureau, law enforcement, and the district attorney's office, and that would help solve a lot of the problems and help farmers get their equipment back when it's stolen.
Jana McClung.
Thank you. Yes, there is more that can be done, and that is being done. My office is working closely with the Sheriff's Department in order to enforce some of the compliance checks on some of the local scrap dealers. One of the issues is we can sit there and arrest the individuals who are committing the thefts, but as long as they still have a place that will take in that property and recycle it, knowing that it is stolen, they're going to continue to do it. We need to start at the top, which is addressing the recyclers in town and putting some compliance checks in place, as well as strengthening the laws that deal with the metal thefts. So in terms of that, my office is working with the Sheriff's Department. In fact, as recently as yesterday, there was a large arrest where 5 items of agricultural equipment were found and restored to the owners, and multiple defendants were arrested. That is the kind of work that is going on in conjunction with the district attorney's office as well as the Sheriff's Department.
Amanda Hopper.
Thank you. The best way to better protect our agriculture is to increase communication and understanding, because what you have now, and I can speak from experience working with both in and outside of this office, is you have ag thefts that are being prosecuted without their full depths being understood. $30 of copper wire being stolen is a misdemeanor crime. But what happens if you actually talk to the farmer, you find out that a $5,000 pump was damaged. That's no longer a misdemeanor. And then you find out about the lost profits, you find out about the stalled production, and you find about the bigger picture of that crime. So when we have an office that is trained and instructed to talk to the people involved in their crimes, to talk to the witnesses, the victims, law enforcement, and members of community, you're going to have a better understanding, which leads to better preparation, which is obviously going to get you better results. That's what needs to happen.
Kulvinder Singh.
The ag crime question is dovetailing with victim witness, because if you can't prove this defendant did it, you're going to waste your resources going after people that you can't prove the case against. If victim witness is not working, you can't prove your case. You won't get settlements. The fact is, Bob, a lot of these business owners here are also being victimized because drugs are the reason for these crimes. People in this area, unfortunately, don't have a way to deal with the usage. We have to do something about demand. Perhaps there are social services, other things that we can do to stop the usage of the drugs, the illegal drugs. I don't know about marijuana. There's certain laws that allow that now. And I think I should let you I should stop here.
Okay, thank you. Anything you'd like to add, Jennifer?
Yes, thank you. When scrap metal is taken to recyclers, they might know it's stolen, but if we can't prove it's stolen, we don't go anywhere. The owner-applied numbers will give us the proof that we need to prove that this metal is stolen. We need a dedicated contact point for farmers. I've already told the Farm Bureau. I'll give them my cell phone number and be available to them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I would also have someone else in the office as a point person, because again, you need to coordinate, you need to know what all the different facets are of the ag crime, so that we can spot the trends and we can really focus in on where the largest problems are, but most importantly, we need to be consistently prosecuting all types of ag crimes. They're part of the caseload, so when people say, I know that budgets are tight, they are part of the caseload, and they will be prosecuted.
Thank you. Angel?
All right, I got several questions, 3 here with this theme. So we'll ask this question since the audience is really intent on this. So let's hear about it. Domestic and family violence are impacting our law enforcement and courts. Do you see any changes needed in the DA's office and how it deals with perpetrators of domestic violence? And what is the role of the DA's office or the prosecution in dealing with the victims? Jana, would you start us off with this?
Yes, thank you. In terms of the role of the district attorney's office in dealing with the victims, it's to engage with the victim, make sure the victim understands the process and feels comfortable with what is going to go on during the process. One of the hardest cases to prosecute are the domestic violence, because we frequently get the recanting victims, which becomes a cycle where they end up reconciling with their abuser, and it happens again and again. So in that regards, we need to work on educating the victim and making sure the victim understands that the DA's office isn't there to tear apart their family. It's to work with them and hopefully stop that cycle of violence now and early, before it continues, it gets worse, and before their children end up in that same cycle of violence with their spouses down the road. So it is to engage with that victim, to listen to the concerns of that victim, and if appropriate, follow the desires of that victim. But if it's not appropriate, ultimately it is to go forward with the crime that we charged and try to prove it up to the best of our ability.
Amanda?
Thank you. In my opinion, the absolute best thing about being a prosecutor is that your entire job really boils down to you get to do justice. And that's it. So that's your goal, and that's what's required in every single case. And I can't tell you how many times in domestic violence cases, and also in other cases, I would have a victim come to me and say, you know, I don't want to proceed and I don't want to press charges. I want to drop the charges. And I'm sure probably all of you have heard people say, I want to drop charges, and that's great. And you know what I get to tell them? I appreciate that, but you're not the one who's prosecuting this person, and they're not your charges to drop. If you want to look at the charging document, it says the people of the state of California versus the defendant. And what that means is the DA's job is to get justice, regardless of what that victim says, regardless of how that victim acts, and regardless of how what that victim wants. However, it's very important that we work closely and encourage that victim, as we do all witnesses, to proceed with the case, because again, preparation is the only way to get good results.
Thank you. Kulvinder?
This is a topic I cannot do in a minute, and I'm going to stop when my time's up. Family Justice Center, Sacramento, they're doing it. You have to provide social services. You have to provide, if people need to get the dissolution filed and be a part, because it's over, we have to have some of those things in-house. Perhaps conversation with the judge, judges, family court judge. It's something that's going to help in the long run. I'm concerned about it. I'm stopping.
All right, thank you. Jennifer.
The role of the district attorney's office in terms of domestic violence is actually very large. First and foremost, as Amanda said, it is to do justice. It's also to keep the victim and society safe. A lot of times, all we need to do is encourage a defendant to get help, and they get it either voluntarily or involuntarily. But ultimately, they get help, care of the statutes that require batterers treatment programs, or through some of the programs in state prisons. We need to know what a victim's wishes are. We don't necessarily need to follow them, because we do need to be doing justice and keeping people safe. One of the ways we do this is working with victim witness, which again is why we need a strong victim witness program, and we also can do it working with community agencies such as Casa de Esperanza. Domestic violence is one of the largest problems. It is one of the most dangerous types of crimes for law enforcement. It's one of the most complex for prosecution, and we need to make sure we maintain an active role in working with our victims, with victim witness, and with the community organizations.
Janet, did you want to add anything to that?
Yes, I would point out that the domestic violence situation impacts society on so many levels, because the children that are in the home, they will grow up to potentially be batterers or alternatively victims. And so getting that help early, stopping that cycle of violence early, is one of the best ways that we can protect the future of our children.
Our next question, we'll start with Amanda. Some feel there is a lack of coordination between the DA's office and law enforcement, which has led to an escalation of gang violence and death in Sutter County. Would you do anything differently to curb gang violence?
Yes, I would. Right now, we have several task force that law enforcement work very hard on, and one of them is the gang task force, and it's either by county task force. And one of the things that is truly appalling is that we have gang members who will verbalize to their probation officers and to law enforcement that they come to Sutter County to commit their gang crimes because they know they're not going to get as much trouble as they would in Yuba County. And our gang officers, our law enforcement in general, are frustrated, rightfully so. I was approached by some prosecutors in Yuba County, and they said they're interested in initiating a bi-county gang prosecution team. That's something that they have not offered to any other candidate, and have indicated that they don't plan to. There are ways that we can effectively prosecute gangs. There are ways that we can follow up on the investigations that are taking place right now, because we have Sutter County police officers who are executing search warrants and conducting investigations in Yuba County because they have more confidence over there.
Kulvinder?
The issue of gangs is something that I learned a little bit more about by attending the police academy. They had a 2-day course, the Roseville Police Department offered it. The big reason we have these gangs is they're moving drugs. If we have officers, investigators that know what's going on, that are involved with the youth, perhaps athletically, some activities with the minority youth, as in other counties, we're finding the minorities are the ones that are in jail, that are the ones that are involved with the gangs. If we have some more officers, we have some more investigators, we have some positive role models, we have some other interaction that will take the youth out of the criminal justice system, or maybe their younger brothers and sisters won't be in it. That's the way to get this done, as opposed to let the gangs know they can go to another county.
And moving on to Jennifer.
Well, I want to send the gang members to another county. I don't want them in my county where I raise my kids. There are ways that we can do that, and they're not difficult ways to do that. A lot of it is understanding the actual gang statutes and understanding that just because someone is a gang member, you cannot always add the gang enhancement to them, which is essentially how the main form of prosecution of gang members, because it's not going to work and it's going to embolden them. We need to be creative. For example, If you've got a gang member who's convicted of a domestic violence offense, this gang member is going to likely be on probation. That makes them searchable. They're prohibited from owning guns or ammunition for 10 years. So now you go search a gang member, odds are you're going to find a gun or ammunition. This is now a felony, and it's not just a county prison felony, it's a state prison felony. So we've now sent this gang member out of our community for at least a little while. And the gang members all talk, and they know that Sutter County is not where they want to come commit their gang crimes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Jana?
Thank you. In our office, we do vertical prosecution, which means we have an attorney specifically assigned to hire to deal with a particular type of case. In our office, we have 2 people who are doing the gang prosecutions, and I am one of those individuals. I, as well as the other attorney in the office who are working on those gang cases, work diligently on the cases. We talk with the gang task force members. We work with them on building strong cases, and we meet with them multiple times before a case ends up going to a preliminary hearing and, more importantly, to trial, to make sure that we've gotten a very strong case built against those gang members. Because building the strong case against them, getting those convictions, and sending them to prison is one way to make our streets safer.
Anything you'd like to add, Amanda?
No, thank you.
All right, we've had several different types of questions from the audience members as well as your peers. I'm going to just try to encapsulate into one question that I think is really what the essence is, what they're trying to figure out. And that is from an operational and cohesive working environment aspect. How would the DA's office change in the first year under your leadership? In other words, paint the picture for us. What would that first year look like to all of us here in office? Kulvinder?
But we're going to be hiring some new people. I also wanted to share with you how we're going to use the model in some other counties where we have interaction between the community and law enforcement, where they're not afraid of law enforcement, of calling 911. Another reason people don't call is maybe they don't have all their immigration done. Not everybody in their family is finally, legally here. So you're not going to call. You've got lots of issues with the fraud, the money, the audit still being done. Sally at OES is going to finish it. She hasn't done it yet. It's not concluded. That's that fund that provided the victim witness funds that the DA's office misappropriated. So what I expect to be doing is to be having some town halls. I expect to be answering questions of the public about how, from the top, we are going to use our money better, how we're going to work with the Yuba County people, the Colusa County people, because those criminals, those young people that have parents in this community and come back here because they get prosecuted less here. So they're living here, they're going on doing the crimes in other counties. And this county. I think those are the changes you will see. Thank you.
Jennifer?
Well, I certainly don't have the time I need to go through all of the changes and what the first year would look like. I'll just touch on a few of them. One is the very first thing that will be done will be an impartial evaluation. Since I'm the only trained prosecutor who has never worked in the Sutter County District Attorney's Office and the only candidate who has worked in other district attorneys' offices, I can go in with the fresh eyes that are needed and give us the fresh start that we need. I can give the impartial evaluation of where we lack training, and I can do the shuffling of assignments because I don't have any preconceived ideas, and just because someone loves an assignment, it doesn't mean that that's the assignment they're best suited to. And most importantly, there will be training. With my network of prosecutors throughout the state, the same prosecutors who teach at the California District Attorneys Association, they have already offered to come in and do in-house training for the cost of transportation and lodging. So we will be able to get the holes in the training in Sutter County District Attorney's Office filled in a fiscally responsible manner.
Thank you. Jan?
Thank you. The office will continue their close working relationship with law enforcement, which will include the gang task force, the Yuba City Police Department, as well as the Sheriff's Department. We'll continue with the vertical prosecution mode that we have currently in place, which provides for consistency in our case filings as well as our case resolution. We will continue to work with the Sutter County Sheriff's Department to address the ag thefts, and in particular to put some pressure on the scrap metal dealers so that we can put a stop to the constant thefts. In terms of what has been addressed as training, I would like to note that the Sutter County District Attorney's Office attorneys all go to regular training. The state bar requires continuing legal education, and we avail ourselves of the training put on by the California District Attorneys Association, which is the premier training institute in the state of California.
Amanda?
Thank you. We're going to have an office that knows that their leader gives her absolute best and demands the best from those people who work with her. You're going to have an office where the leader gets in there and gets stuff done and makes sure that the people who work with her do the same thing, and they do it with absolute integrity, honesty, transparency, and efficiency. You're going to have someone who gets in there and actually sits right with those people and helps them if they need help, and if they don't need help, encourages them, because you are only as good as the people with you. I have an absolute belief that by lifting up and motivating the people with me, that we will be better as a whole. Those are things that don't require budget. Those are things that require motivation, training, and confidence.
Thank you. Kulvinder, did you have anything to add?
Yes, I do. We have law schools in the area. They have so many women now in the classes, they're more than 50%. They have so many minorities. You know those young lawyers, when they pass the bar, they're looking for jobs. We're going to hire some in this county. They're going to be minorities. They're going to be able to communicate with the minority communities in this area. We're going to have trained prosecutors with some years of experience, appointed judges. We're going to do a lot of things that other counties are doing. This is one of those counties where they're all white. It's not that there's anything wrong with that. It's that the community that's on the other side of this bar, or in the courtroom, you know, the bench, they don't look like the people on the bench. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have time for one more question, and we'll start with Jennifer Dupré. Let's see, I'm trying to find my question. What is your position on plea bargaining, violent felony, and sex crime cases? And this is another question from the audience.
Plea bargaining generally carries with it a negative connotation. Plea bargaining does not need to be giving away the store. But quite frankly, the justice system will not function without some sort of plea bargains, because we do not have the capacity to take every single case that is filed to trial. So I do believe in plea bargaining. I expect that the offers that are made will reflect the conduct of the defendant, and I absolutely do not believe that offers should get better the closer you get to trial. The best offer should be at the beginning of a case, and the only reason it's the better offer is because they're getting the benefit of pleading early in the case and not putting victims through the entire court process. Unfortunately, plea bargaining is necessary in our justice system, but it needs to be done with an eye towards justice, considering the victim's wishes and ensuring that it does reflect the conduct of the defendant.
Jana?
May I have you read the question one more time?
What is your position on plea bargaining, violent felony, and sex crime cases?
As long as we have a solid case that we can prove in front of a jury, we don't have a need to plea bargain the case. We are in the driver's seat at that point in time. The cases we need to look at plea bargaining are the ones that have potential flaws in them that may result in the jury returning something less than we can get through the plea bargaining system. And so my position would be, if we have the strong case, we go forward. If it's got a couple of problems in it, then we look at whether or not we can plea bargain it and get a very good result. But in either situation, when you're dealing with violent sex offenders, there's not a lot of wiggle room. You've got to go for the most you can get.
Amanda?
I believe, as I said, that the job of the district attorney's office is to do justice. What that means is that every prosecutor should have the understanding and judgment to look at every case that comes across their desk. And when they review that case, they should be able to figure out what that case is worth and what justice demands in that case. And then their goal is to get that. And when that means that you fight all the way, then that's what you do. And sometimes that means that you don't and you plea bargain, because sometimes justice warrants a program or probation or a lesser sentence, because you have to weigh resources and you have to weigh what's best for that particular case. But the point is that you go and you fight for whatever is best in every single case. And you should know how to gauge that in every single case.
Kulvinder?
I agree with everything that all three of them said. I'm going to add some more. There's Joseph Grise. He's a registered sex offender, no address. How's that? And if you have a case where you have more than one victim, and they're under 18, and you don't charge kidnapping, and you don't charge a certain offense, which could result in 25 to life, then you don't get to put them away. So those violent felons and those sex offenders that Bob's questions asked, you asked about, if you don't have the evidence, if you don't investigate, there's a mandated reporting requirement. So Yuba told Sutter, hey, you might want to check this out. Something happened at South Township Road area. And they didn't do anything. I even spoke to David Williams, the head investigator. He was sitting right next to the prosecutor at the trial of the mother-in-law got killed. And if that's the attitude at this office, in this area, that there are some violent felons and sex offenders that we don't need to prosecute and put them away, that's going to change.
And Jennifer, anything you'd like to add?
One of the reasons that plea bargaining is necessary, even in cases of violent felonies or sex offenses, is because you never know what a jury will do. And oftentimes a victim wants certainty. No matter how much they say they're willing to go to the mat, when it comes right down to it, a lot of times a victim wants certainty, a victim wants to not have to testify. In those circumstances, it is appropriate to plea bargain. Again, as long as justice is being served and whatever offer is made by the district attorney's office accurately reflects the conduct of the defendant. That's what doing justice is.
Okay, thank you very much. And I wish we had more time for questions, but what we've seen tonight is a highly informative and intelligent conversation. I certainly have learned a lot, and I certainly thank all those presenting. Let's go to our closing statements, and we'll start with Amanda Hopper. Up to 2 minutes.
Okay, sounds good. I think that this is the most exciting election that Sutter County's seen in 3 decades, and I am thrilled to be a part of it because, as was pointed out earlier by Bob, it's the first time we have a chance as residents of Sutter County to vote for our elected DA in a contested race. And we also have a historic amount of choices in our race. And so it's one of those things that every time I get a chance to talk to people, and I'm out knocking on doors every day or going to events, is number one, vote. Number one, get involved in your community and have a voice. Sure, I would love your support and I want your vote, but it is a historic and exciting time, and I think it's worth pointing that out because I hope that everyone is sharing that message. Another thing that I also want to point out, and I'm going to kind of go off topic, is that I get a lot of feedback, and that's my favorite thing about getting out in the community is hearing feedback. And I get a lot of, we want change for our county, and what are you going to do to make change, and what makes you the best candidate, and it's so challenging. And I also get a little bit of negative feedback, and I think that's fairly normal, and I have to tell you, my biggest compliment is that the number one question I get is, how are you going to do this job when you have children? And I want to address that because it's something that I think is very important for people to understand. That is that when you are productive, when you are multitasked, when you are organized, and when you're efficient, then you do a good job. And that's what I've done my entire career. I have been efficient, I have been motivated, I have been productive, and I have been the kind of mother who leads by example. And I have shown my children that when you believe in something, you fight for it. And I will fight for them, just as I will fight for Sutter County, and I will fight for the victims and the people who come across my desk the way I have for my entire career.
Thank you. Kulvinder?
This, for me, is about community service. when I finished law school and I was waiting for bar results, I wanted to know what the legal needs were in the community. And I found an office that assisted seniors, and they were of all different races. They were happy to talk to someone that was young, full of energy, that could research stuff, write letters. When this position became available, I learned at the end of last year, I looked into it, and I think I can bring some other aspects. I have training as how to be a judge. I've done that in the small claims court. I'm a mediator. I've been part of the Roseville Police Academy training that they do to identify drug users, to identify things you should do to help them prosecute crimes. Don't clean up the scene after a break-in. There are various other things that I would bring, because I'm not from the area. I'm not beholden to anybody. I'm not married to anybody. My family member's not in law enforcement. I think by having somebody that hadn't worked at the Sutter County DA or at the Yuba County DA would help, because, you know, they never know what I'm going to do. They would always be concerned that he's going to find something, he's going to tell everybody. He's going to have a town hall meeting, write a letter, or, you know, put something out, because we have to have transparency now. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's move on to Jennifer Dupré.
First of all, I want to thank all of you again for coming, and I want to thank the Chamber, the Farm Bureau, and the Appeal Democrat for this opportunity. I raised my family here. My husband, Rick, my daughter, Angel, are here tonight supporting me. I want this community to be safe. I want everyone in this community to feel that this community is safe. I've lived here almost 10 years, so no, I didn't grow up here either. But this is where I've chosen to make my home and to raise my family. When I started this quest, this adventure that is a campaign to become district attorney here in Sutter County, I was cautioned, don't expect to get law enforcement endorsements early. You know, they'll come in at the last minute if they come in at all. And I have to say that I am truly honored and humbled that very early on I received the endorsements from the 2 law enforcement agencies that have worked with all of the prosecutors that are sitting at this table. And that would be the California Highway Patrol and the Fish and Game Wardens Association. As your next DA, I will run the district attorney's office with open communication, with transparency, with integrity, with ethics, and with honor and respect for everyone in the community, for victims, for law enforcement, and for each other. And so, Dupré for DA on June 3rd.
Thank you. Jen?
Thank you. I'm the only candidate with the experience, education, and knowledge to not only try cases, but to run a department that has a $3.2 million budget. I'm the only candidate that has management experience and has held a leadership role in the district attorney's office. As the acting district attorney, I know the amount of work this job takes and the amount of attention it takes. It is not an 8-to-5 job. It is not a job that is 40 hours a week. It is much longer. And I'm at the point in my life, and more importantly, in my family's life, where I have the time to dedicate to the job. 60+ hours if that's what it requires. I'm a dedicated prosecutor, and I have been for the last 15 years. I care about this community. My husband and I have chosen to live here, to raise our family here, and I've chosen to work in this community in a way that serves and protects this community. I'm asking for your vote on June 3rd. I want to thank the Chamber of Commerce, the Appeal Democrat, and the Farm Bureau. And I want to thank you for your attention and your time.
And thanks to all the candidates.